Hey, and welcome to another episode of the Who Dat Jedi podcast. This is episode 201 for your playbooks. Dave, I got to tell you, I've shortened the file names for these things. It's now just going to say WDJ and then the number of the episode. I'm not including the date anymore because I'm lazy. But welcome back, everyone. It's been a couple weeks, I think, since we've seen each other. I went on vacation. Fredo had camp. Dave shaved his beard. If this was a video podcast, you'd be yelling stranger danger right now because Dave does not look like the Dave that we've known for a while now. But anyway, but it's looking good, looking clean. So
keep hearing that I look younger, but there's still a lot of gray in there,
I've said, first of all, I mean, the one day I had somebody cutting my hair like about 20 years ago, and she said I had a receding hairline. I just went, what? And it's like, I do not have a receding hairline. My hair has been the same. And luckily, knock on wood, I don't have any thinning or anything going on here. But I'm waiting for white hair because I would rock white hair. My beard is driving me crazy because it's this mixture of gray and blonde. So it just looks kind of bleh. But I would rock white hair. I just know I would. So
see, that's the thing. It's like at the very least with blonde, blonde and gray kind of blend into one another. If you got like brown or darker hair, it's just there's no way to avoid it. Contrast.
You get the skunk effect.
You start looking like Pepe Le Pew.
Very much so. Very much so. I mean, depending. I mean, like you get the Reed Richards like sideburns, like my brother is getting.
Oh,
or
dude.
You can just get
no,
patches,
you need to get the Doctor Strange stuff going here.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Same idea.
But the ladies say that the salt and pepper look is good, right? I don't know.
Depends on the person. I mean, I guess everybody has their tastes and their preferences. Just as long as you're happy with it.
But I will say, like I said, I went on vacation. We had a long plane flight, and I loaded up my iPad with. I told you guys about this. I loaded my iPad with Andor, so I did an Andor rewatch on the plane, and I just encourage everybody to go back and watch that. I mean, we'd have to go back into episodes to see if we even saw anything bad with that series. We didn't have too many critiques, I don't think. It's there's thunder. It is so well done, from the writing to the acting to the cinematography. It's just, I was watching this going, man, this is so good.
Yeah, I think like my only criticism that was ever is the slow start, those first couple of episodes. But once episode 3 really gets going, things just kind of propel, and really well done.
It's the most adult Star Wars story they've told, and they should do more of that.
Yeah,
it's good.
It's interesting though. It makes you wonder. I've heard on a couple podcasts. It's like, I wonder why did Andor get all the episodes and long run time, and others are getting, like on the Acolyte, which we're going to talk about the Acolyte tonight because we haven't talked about the last about 3 episodes. So we're going to talk about where that's going. But it's, we're getting barely 30 minutes. So it's like, I don't understand. Is it like, did the writers not have all that much to say, or do they have more constraints? I don't have an answer to that. It's just, I find it very interesting that, like the Mandalorian and Acolyte, they're getting just barely 30 minutes, and Andor was, tons. So.
Well, that's what's interesting. Because when you think about it, it's something that's been with us from the beginning. Remember season 1, episode 2 of Mandalorian was only 29 minutes, 35 minutes maybe at that, if you had credits and everything. It was really short, and we were all kind of surprised. And from the outset, Disney made it clear that the episodes were going to be as long as they needed to be, and they were going to pad stuff. But I sometimes feel like that's to their detriment, because if you give creators like, okay, we're going to need 8 full hours, give or take, then you have to start considering how you're going to do that appropriately. Maybe we get to know some of these characters. It leads to some of the criticisms of Acolyte.
Well,
fair criticisms.
And then I also hear when people are complaining about when they're complaining that they're not getting enough of just enough fill in the blank. And it's just like,
Mhm.
what if this was a 2.5 hour movie? Would you be complaining? How would they tell this story? And could they tell this story in a 2.5 hour movie? And would you be complaining that I'm just kind of getting tired of people complaining? Because at the end of the day, like I said, we're getting a ton more Star Wars and some good Star Wars, which I mean, I think we'll talk about this, but I think we just saw like one of the best lightsaber fights that there ever was. So, but anyway, um, let's jump into some trivia. I'm going to pull from the other deck so we don't get the same questions all the time. Watch, there'll be repeats. All right, to the freshly shaven Dave. What do troopers put on Chewbacca after he throws a fit in the carbon freezing chamber? What do troopers put on Chewbacca after he throws a fit in the carbon freezing chamber?
Well, that would be shackles or handcuffs if you want.
Binders or handcuffs, yes.
Yeah.
By the way, that was kind of funny. This most recent episode of The Acolyte, I did hear a podcast, and they didn't come up with my answer, but this podcast was saying, have we ever had a naked being in Star Wars? Because, the Sith dude, goes skinny dipping. And I'm sitting there going, Chewbacca in Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah, I took his bandolier.
Took his bandolier off. I mean, he's naked as a jaybird that whole time. So anyway, all right, I digress. Fredo, who points out Obi-Wan's table to stormtroopers entering the Mos Eisley Cantina? Ooh. Who points out Obi-Wan's table to stormtroopers entering the Mos Eisley Cantina?
I don't know the character's name. I know who you're talking about. I'm just going to say the bartender.
Dave, should we give it to him or should we only give him half credit?
This is like the third podcast in a row where I've gotten like the obscure question. I'm calling
Oh,
shenanigans
you
here.
know
Yeah,
what?
full
No,
credit. Full
no,
credit.
he does get full credit because look what the answer is.
Ah, yay! I feel
The
good
answer on the
about.
card is bartender. All right, so now listeners, I'm not going to say what the answer is. I know what the answer is because I have his action figure like right over there. If you know the name of the bartender, hit us up on Twitter or Facebook and let us know. We'll just and you'll earn our respect if you give us the right answer. But yeah.
Undying respect.
That's funny. That's almost I think I've told the story of the night at trivia when we were playing bar trivia and the question was sorry if I know I've said this before, but I'm saying it again. The question was Kyber crystals power harvested from the planet Jeddah. Kyber crystals power what Star Wars weapon? And of course, there's two answers to this because it's either the Death Star or lightsabers. And I said, I wrote on the card, since you are referencing Rogue One and Jeddah, I'm putting the Death Star. And it was lightsabers, and I threw a holy living fit. And my dad scolded me in front of all my friends because I was throwing a fit on this. I throw a fit on saying the bartender. You should have the name of the guy. He's got an action figure. I mean, we all know Wilro Hood now, for crying out loud. All right. So, to me, who sighs, sometimes I just don't understand human behavior. Fredo just rolled his eyes. If this was a video podcast, you'd see his disdain for that question. Who sighs, sometimes I just don't understand human behavior? That would be C-3PO. Yep. All right. Do we feel adequately warmed up? Feeling good? We got some news to talk about, huh, Fredo? What's going on?
There's a couple of tidbits from the last couple of weeks. Nothing major, but it's kind of interesting. I mean, obviously, we'll start with this. So last week, sometime over the weekend, there was a bit of a leak coming out of the most unlikely place, i.e., Lego, when the Skeleton Crew Lego chip was apparently posted online. Pictures of it posted online So we got a name for it. It's called the Onyx Cinder. It's a set that's supposed to come out later at the end of this year when Skeleton Crew drops. What's interesting is they also revealed that what you call it, the Jude Law's character's name is, I believe, Jode or Jor, and then the four kids were like kind of like the Goonies, who appear will be called Wim, Fern, Neil, and K8. So I mean,
I,
what's
I
interesting is
I
this.
hope his name is
Yeah,
Jode Faw.
yeah, yeah. What the Ba-dum-bum. Well, it's it's interesting that this is a show that's supposed to drop sometime during the holidays. I mean, they typically it was finished early in 2023. They wanted to have it out for holiday season 2023. They couldn't because of the writers and actors strike. So rather than mess up their plans, they are actively seeking to put it in the holiday window to release. So we're expecting
Well,
to get some, but then it's all filmed and shot, and we still haven't seen anything outside of, I think, Celebration got a trailer for it. And that's it.
and by the way, Lego always releases spoilers. I mean, that
Mhm.
happens like with every Star Wars release. Um, I'm just disappointed that one of the kids' name isn't Lumpy. They should totally have that. Um, yeah, no, I mean, you're right. It is kind of weird that we don't have, you know, even a glimpse of anything, but maybe that will come in a couple weeks here,
Gotta
because
imagine.
the Acolyte will be done. So,
Well, that's the thing. You gotta imagine once Acolyte is done, we might. I mean, I know we're getting the Lego Star Wars special, with the Dark Millennium Falcon, Darth Jar Jar, that whole nine. But there's not going to be any other Star Wars property until Skeleton Crew comes during the holiday season. It's we're going to go without Star Wars stuff for a while there, and it's
for
surprising
for
given. Yeah,
for
it's
what, a
it's,
whole
it's
three
crazy.
months?
No, but I mean, no, we're talking. Acolyte's going to have the episode today, and then next week is the finale, and then it's not till, like I said, holiday season. So you're talking, till another live
By the
action Star Wars project.
by the way, when does the Acolyte come out each week? I mean, I was out of the country for a couple, but is it on Tuesdays or is it on Wednesdays?
Tuesdays,
Is it?
but like late, like at like 8.
Yeah, 8, 9 o'clock our time, like 9 o'clock Eastern, 8 o'clock our time.
All right. Well, I was confused. So anyway, um,
I'll be watching it right after our episode here.
Exactly. So speaking of people watching, there was an interesting article over on Screen Rant regarding uh, the the data, watch viewing and people watching it. So apparently, they talked to a third-party analytics firm called Real Good, who examined viewing trends across all U.S. streaming platforms. A lot of these platforms like Netflix don't share their streaming and or viewing numbers unless it's like overwhelming and they want to get people's attention. But apparently, according to them, based on the monitoring of 20 million monthly viewing decisions, and they say that the Acolyte may be a lot more popular than many people believe. I mean, they compared it to the other, uh, Star Wars TV shows, and they found that the Acolyte is the second most successful in terms of streaming and engagement, only surpassed by Obi-Wan Kenobi, which outperformed every other TV show by a factor of 8. So, despite the fact that they're getting review bombed, despite the fact that there's uh, a lot of online backlash, quote unquote, by real fans, quote unquote, no, it seems like people are tuning in and they're watching it. So it's surprising, when you dig into the data. Apparently, that's the case.
yeah, shock. I mean, I again, I said, I think our what 2 episodes ago, that I really don't throw a lot of credence towards um, the squeaky wheels. And I also think I wonder if people are taking the same advice that we've been saying, is like, don't pass judgment on this until, because of the way they're telling the story, don't pass judgment on it until you've seen everything. That's why I really disagree. While I listen to the podcast and I'm a fan of their podcast, I disagree with rating each of these Acolyte episodes. It's like, because it isn't each episode isn't just wrapped neatly in a bow. It's not like the Mandalorian one. It's they're doing some weird stuff. So I think it's you just gotta wait until the last episode and then look at the story as a whole. Um, but yeah,
I don't really see the purpose in rating individual episodes because like a rating is sort of meant as guidance, I think, as a recommendation or non-recommendation, and presumably people aren't going to just cherry pick episodes to watch from a series that's this short. That doesn't make any kind of narrative sense to me.
yeah. I guess I
To,
don't see it necessarily as a recommendation. It's a grade, but it's like
yeah,
it's 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 a quiz grade versus the end of term grade. You're right, but your point is very well taken. It's just, I mean, there are certain objective things I think that you could, you know, say that was good, that wasn't. I mean, as far as
yeah.
performance or as far as cinematography, things like that, special effects. But when they're talking about the story's not working for you or something like that, it's like no, you can't. Not in this. You can't in this one because we don't have the whole story yet. So
And I think that's one of the difficulties with the kind of storytelling that they're doing is that it's not episodic. Something like The Mandalorian, particularly at the start, there was an adventure of the week mindset where you did go someplace that could involve some adventure and it would end and then on to the next, even if there was an overarching story in the background regarding Grogu. Whereas this is very much we are telling you one story, but we're chopping it up into several smaller bites so we can get to you each week. Like, I wonder if come the season finale, you can go back and just go, okay, can I just get and it'd be nice if Disney Plus can just go, just do a whole run through because it's not going to be 8 hours. Some of these episodes are 35 minutes. It might be
it'll
six
be an
hours.
it'll be an afternoon. Yeah.
Right, exactly. But you can just binge the whole thing, and if it worked together more cohesively and better as one sit through, one massive experience, as opposed to the way we're getting it, because that's the way Disney demands it.
So let me ask you this. Britt and I were talking about this yesterday, and as we were stuck in traffic, um, there's first of all, there are a lot of assumptions that people are making about characters and about what this show is about, type of thing. And one of them that I've heard is, this is a story about the Sith. This is a darker story. This is, and it's okay for Star Wars to go down this storyline and blah 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 blah. And my first reaction was, yeah, okay, yeah, you're right that there should be room for a story like that. However, then I was quickly pivoted on my heels and I was like, every Star Wars is ultimately about hope. At the end of even the darkest episode that you have, Empire Strikes Back, Last Jedi, um, it's a story about hope. Andor, as dark as that was, as adult as we were talking about earlier, ends on a hopeful note. So when I hear people talking about, this is going, the Acolyte's going to end with Osha and Chimere, basically standing side by side to, rule the dark side and blah, 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 blah. I'm just like, that's not very Star Wars. I don't know. What do you guys think about my point here? I mean, do you see them taking a hard left turn and we have an ending here? And I'm getting the cart way before the horse, but do you think that they would like have a, um, yeah? Do you think they would go down that road?
I think they could, um, but creators involved in this can do whatever the bleep they want. But um, I tend to agree with you. I don't think that that's very Star Wars in nature. When we talk about this, like, how do you define Star Wars, and like, what are the characteristics that are important in making something true to the property? And I think that idea behind like hope is sound. That's part of it.
And that doesn't mean that the bad guy doesn't come out on top at the end of the episode, because that happened in Empire Strikes Back. I could certainly
Right.
see, you know, Chimere,
Winning.
getting away, type of a deal,
To to
but
your point, like where we're trending with this is like people, maybe everybody dies, um, and then they can technically be true, like the Sith haven't been discovered in a millennia or whatever,
okay.
and
So now I have to throw this out there.
yeah,
Cart way before the horse. Oh, sorry. I know
yeah,
we haven't even talked about the 3 episodes, but I
right.
had kind of a moment today where I was like, oh my gosh, this is what's probably going to happen. Now you guys can shoot me down with this if you think. Okay, so, and I'm sorry everybody, we can come back to this after we talk about three
Dude,
episodes.
let's just go with it,
Well,
man. Like
so
whatever.
I think we are going to find out that I think Soul is going to have a Harvey Dent ending. We're going to find out that Soul is not the first coming of Qui-Gon Jinn, like everybody has anointed him. It's very good. I mean, the acting has been incredible. The character has been interesting to watch, but I think we're going to find out that he has an incredible dark side to him and did some crappy stuff. And I think Vernestra is going to end up taking him out and then covering it up and saying that he sacrificed himself for the good of, the team and OSHA, and because she doesn't want anybody to know that there is a former Jedi running around calling himself, or saying that people might call him, a Sith. I don't know. That's my thought, is that we're going to get a Harvey Dent moment.
Well, I mean, I guess we can finally crack a little bit on the episodes. It's interesting that Vernestra's first thought upon coming on the scene of the battle and deducing that it must have been a powerful force user who killed all these Jedi, is that Saul did it.
No, that wasn't
Not
her. That was the other dude. That was her sidekick,
well,
and she said that's a powerful accusation.
okay.
So
But the
she's not
point
the
is,
one who said it,
she's
but
saying powerful, yeah, powerful force user did it. Saul isn't here. We know he survived, and this is where they're jumping to. So maybe she'll lean into that towards the end. And it's it gets interesting because, yeah, you're right. I mean, we might be putting several carts ahead of the horse here, but just from the standpoint of, they know for a fact that their power is something that nobody else is sharing in the galaxy, which is interesting because we've met various witch cults. We know the Sith are out there, but as far as the Jedi are concerned, the only people who have a connection and use the Force on a regular basis is them.
mm,
So their natural inclination is to go, if anybody did this, it's us, not nobody else. So it creates an interesting dynamic because, from what we see, particularly in the last episode, Saul is in a very, I don't want to say troubled, but kind of unsure place. He's not sure of what's going on. He's not sure what's happening. He's very emotional and he's very vulnerable, at least emotionally. And we know from past projects, movies, series, that usually doesn't bode well for Jedi, because that's usually when the dark side kind of goes, "Come on, come on."
well, we were arguing about this. We can't really remember where we left off, but we're going to take it up where they meet up after Kelnaka has been killed, and they meet up with the Sith person. Well, call him the Sith person. It's the other problem. I have a big problem with people calling him the Sith Lord. I guess even StarWars.com said he's a Sith Lord. But anyway, there's like I said, an epic lightsaber fight. I mean, this was just so very cool and so very well done, where, like, one of the shots, he does what people have called the Sith kebab, where he, skewers one and then force pulls another one into the lightsaber. And then it's so well done where they move those two behind the trees and he does a headshot. So you don't see them get decapitated, but it's clearly implied. So the camera work was so well done. And we were introduced, if you haven't read legends to this technology that allows you to block lightsabers and short them out. Kurtosis, I think, is what people say it's called. I don't know. What you guys think of? Well, and we lose. I guess we can just get to the end of it. We lose everybody except for Soul. I mean, when Jackie, spoiler alert, when Jackie got killed, that just made me go, good. I mean, and that was bad. And then Yord gets head snap. I mean, this was a fight.
Yeah, right off the outset, I think one of the things that I appreciated from the episode is that it put us in media res. It just okay. We last week we left you after he used his force powers to create this giant dust cloud and cover himself. And when Osha comes to, she's looking at the distance. She's seeing lightsabers swinging, and here's the fight. And next thing you know, you're put into the middle of that fight with the master. And it's interesting that he uses the term, he doesn't use the term Sith. He says, you, meaning Saul, would call me Sith.
Right.
But he doesn't call himself that. And as we learn later, he doesn't necessarily doesn't consider himself that. It's just that he's not sure what terminology. He expresses what he wants. He wants the freedom to use the force power that he has as he wishes without Jedi or anybody else getting in his way, which is pretty Sith. But then that's the point is what I am, you would call this, and that's not necessarily the case. But yeah, I think I was surprised at particularly Jackie's loss. I thought, okay, we might, we're gonna lose a few characters here. But you
You
got all the
you thought it was going to be
excuse
the
that
red shirts. You thought it was going to be the red
well, that,
shirts. Yeah.
exactly. Look, we got we got the Star Trek red shirt, dynamic here, where all these Jedi Knights who are not named ever in the since we knew them or
F-
till we lost them.
fake
Okay, they're
Plo
gonna go.
fake Plo Koon. Yeah.
Exactly. So,
Hey,
but then the moment when Jackie, who's doing a pretty good job of holding her own, gets taken out by a kind of cheap trick from Amir and just gets stabbed 3 times. Like, oh crap! I was like, this is different now because this is a character who the show had actually spent time for us to get to know, to get to like that idea, that element of, okay, she's kind of on the young end. You're actually going to kill. You're not quite killing younglings, but you're killing a Padawan. That's a big deal here. And then followed up almost immediately with the reveal of Premier as the master, and then just a casual way in which he just dispatches Yord, who's been shown to be a pretty comparable Jedi Knight. It kind of shows you, okay, the High Republic is maybe the last hurrah of the Jedi at their peak, but even then, they're not really all I can think of is Demolition Man when Boy Schneider and what's his name, Rob Schneider goes, we can't deal with this level of violence. We're the cops.
it's yeah, they're clearly overwhelmed. Where I fall in with a lot of this with this show, and what I really like about this show is the sort of speculation that it inspires. Um, like during this whole segment of the show, and then in the aftermath, it was very much, well, what's his deal? Like, the dark side user in this is like, is he Sith? Is he not Sith? Is he a Knight of Ren? Is he the original Knight of Ren?
Well, and that's the cool thing is that I mean, it wasn't even like it was hardcore Kylo Ren's theme at
Mm-hmm.
the end of that
All,
episode.
and all through the end credits, even of the last episode, it's replayed.
Yeah.
And the helmet is so, reminiscent there, and the way that he's styled. I mean, I think clearly you could say at minimum Kylo took some inspiration from this figure or other figures like him. But like, is there a little bit more of a direct line there in a lineage? And I think like that's an interesting question. And it was like, would that be something that they
Well,
choose to do?
and that's what I have kind of come down to as well, because the episode that follows when he's on the unknown planet, which, by the way, kids, Leslie Headland said it's not Octo. I mean, it's like not every desert planet is Tatooine. Um, But anyway, when the way he answers questions and gives information, there are a couple different ways to interpret it because um, we see he has a scar on his back. And Leslie Edlin also, by the way, said, I am giving you, she's spoon feeding us everything. So there's no coincidence that we see this scar on his back that looked like it was caused by a whip. And then we see a lightsaber whip later on in the episode. I don't think there's any coincidence behind that. So my thought is because Osha asks him, what do you want? And he said, the power of two. He didn't say, I want an apprentice. He didn't say, I want to be this, that. The power of two. He did say he was a Jedi at one point. My thought is that he was discarded by the Jedi, whether, and probably had a big fight with Vernestra, and then went looking for and wanting to join a Sith master, whoever that might be. And he said, no, Skippy, get out of here. I've already got my apprentice. There can only be two. You're out. You can't be in the club. So he's been discarded by both Jedi and Sith. And he's wanting, I'm kind of in the camp of he's forming the Knights of Ren. Because I would think that if he was Sith, I think we probably would have been hearing the Emperor's theme rather than Kylo Ren's theme. Because even Kylo Ren wasn't Sith. So, but anyway, that's kind of where I'm falling on this. So,
Yeah,
Well,
no, and it gets,
go ahead.
no, I was going to say it gets interesting because, first of all, as far as the Jedi are concerned, there's no such thing as Sith. There's no such dark Force users. None of that exists because, again, they're the only ones using the Force. Um, so the fact that Kinnear may have gone and found the actual Sith master of this time, whether it's Darth Tenebris, Pelagius, somebody else, and then was rejected, it's interesting on its own right. Um, but also, it kind of shows that again the duality, the simple dual clarity that the Jedi and Sith both live in, which is light side good, dark side bad, or dark side's also, light side dumb, dark side the side that rocks.
because good is
It
dumb.
Good is
exactly,
dumb.
exactly. That simple duality does not actually encapsulate the totality of the mysteries of the Force. That's one of the things that makes this show really interesting and intriguing from both a story standpoint, but also just simply from an expansion of our knowledge of the Star Wars galaxy as a whole. Because this is a lot of stuff that has not been discussed. Yes, we've gotten the death of Miri Witches, and yes, we've gotten the Archon Mortis. Those are snippets. We're finally getting a bit more deeper into some of the meat and potatoes of how the Force navigates itself through the galaxy and how different people and species connect to this sort of thing. And because it'd be interesting to say, okay, you got into a fight with Nestra, fell out with the Jedi Order. She clearly doesn't remember him or may not even think it's him. Somehow he ends up at the Sith. Okay, that's a pretty big galaxy. How did that happen? How did you find them when they've done such a good job that the Jedi can't find them? So it creates questions, which I appreciate.
Well, do you think it's very likely that he has connected with the Sith in some fashion because of the theory that's going around? And you had this in the notes, which is like, what planet are they on at the in the most recent episode? And uh, some people like immediately like, oh, that looks like Achto, and
That was me.
yeah, and same deal. And then the wildlife was different, right? It was your first clue that like maybe it's not. And then um, there's this entry going around from Wikipedia um, that describes this planet, which again, it's got the apostrophe thing, which is like, Aaron's favorite thing, but it's got a Baldemnik.
Oh yeah,
Is
that's from the
apparently the one.
legends stuff where keep going.
It's an oceanic planet adorned with rocky tropical islands located within the Outer Rim territories, which has rich deposits of cortosis ore, which at one point in time fell into the hands of Sith Lords Darth Tenebrous and Darth Plagueis.
Yep.
Which I can only assume was from the Darth Plagueis novel.
I think so. Yeah.
But like there you go, right? Like, a lot of that lines up like really, really well. So like, again, did he seek them out? Did they reject him? What's that relationship look like? We don't know. But like some of these lines do seem to be coming together.
Just right quick before Aaron comes in, this goes back to something that Aaron pointed out after the third episode, when we started hearing the whole idea about the power of two, Osha and May. Because that's the thing. Now you got that other element in the back of your head going like, does he want actually a master and apprentice? He tells us he wants an apprentice. He wants a pupil. He wants an acolyte. Name drop kids. He's telling you what he wants. But is that acolyte Osha, May, or both?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the
So,
power too. Like, I want them both, maybe.
So I will say, as we're talking about, we're on the island here. I want to put it out first and foremost that I absolutely loved the storyline that was going on here. I mean, it was 110% seduction. It was the seduction of the dark side. He was doing everything he can, mentally and physically to seduce Osha. And I have no problem with that being a storyline. I have no problem with it whatsoever. What I have a problem with are the people who are interpreting it as finally we're getting romance in Star Wars. And that's just when, and it's like I turned off a podcast 10 minutes in when it was a female host that said, yes, I've been waiting for this. And then, for have, romance back in Star Wars. And it's like, this is not romance. 100% it's seduction. 100% it's, there was something physical that he was trying to do. And maybe she was, attracted to it, but it is not Han and Leia. That it's not, it wasn't something that I think Dave would sit down with his two daughters and say, yeah, you know what, even if you see him, kill all your friends right in front of you, as long as he's hot, that's okay. It's like there were these two podcasters saying, let the hot people make out. It's like, this is just so wrong in so many places to interpret it that way. 100% seduction, 100% he had no interest in, her on a romantic level. He just wants her to be on his team. I don't know. Okay, get off my lawn. Okay, that's been driving me crazy. I don't know, but I want to throw it to Dave first because Dave has two daughters. What do you think? Am I like? Do I need to calm down or Because I do agree that we are missing romance in Star Wars.
Yes,
but let it be,
romance.
Yeah, right. Where Han and Leia was very much African Queen, where they were on each other's nerves, but it was still Han Solo was still, the rogue who had a good heart. That's not this dude. So anyway, okay, go ahead.
You can have a little smut in Star Wars. Smut is okay. I'm okay with that. To a degree, right? Like we're trying to be inclusive. We're trying to still include kids. And if we ever get to a point where there's something that's just for adults only, I'll be a little sad about that. I'll be disappointed.
Yeah.
So like that's kind of like my hard line there, which is like, yeah, okay, this is okay, but like it's clearly not romance. I kind of get stuck on this idea of morality at times in modern movies because like I feel like we're losing the plot a little bit as a society right now, where you see rhetoric, especially in the political spectrum, which is just like, well, we have to like kill our opponent, and it's like, kill, like that's in the Bible, like thou shalt not kill, like that's like that's right there, man. Like, it's plain as day. Like, you don't do that. And like, we're talking about doing it now. And um I watched that movie Hitman recently. And like, my biggest complaint with that movie was that it sort of leaned into this moral ambiguity eventually, and sort of making excuses for murder. I'm like, no, no, murder's not okay with me. Sorry, you kind of lost me there. And this recalls that a little bit for me, which is like, no, it's if she goes for it, it should be a lesson for the viewer. It should be like, oh, she made a mistake. Oh, let's see where this mistake goes. But it's too bad she made that mistake.
I cannot remember what the term was, but Britt and I was going off on this, and as Britt and I were talking about it, and she said she understands where this line of thought is coming from because there is a genre of literature. I can't remember what she called it. It was like,
Erotica?
no, mafia something. I don't know. It's very much like, the guy who kills all the people, and the girl has the hots
Mm.
for him, and blah blah blah. It's so there is that genre of literature that is really big, especially with a younger generation. But she said that doesn't make it, she doesn't like it. But she says she can understand where people are wanting that. It's kind of like the Kylo Ren and Rey thing. It's
Which people got wrong.
yeah, it's like that again. Sorry, I'm not going to go down that road. But this one, it bothers me when they say, yes, we have romance, and let the hot people kiss. It's just like, come on.
Particularly when there's nothing. Okay, first of all, two things. OSHA does not know who this guy is. OSHA has never met this man. This man has taken her against her will from where she wasn't go far to an undisclosed location where she's far away. And I told her, look, you want to leave, swim to that ship so you can leave. Oh, by the way, the tide's changing, so you might want to do that right now. So he's trapped her there. That's not romantic. That's creepy behavior to begin with.
Yes.
It puts the
But
lotion on the
also,
basket, or it gets the hose again.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Nobody looks at Silence of the Lambs as a romance. Okay, maybe Hannibal because the author thought about it that way. But anyway, we won't go that road. Um, I was gonna say two
I can
things.
only think about Clerks too. I'm sorry. I'm just like, I've got Jay like dancing now. Sorry.
Okay,
White
exactly.
horses. Yes.
Yes. Anyway, I was going to say the first thing that came to my mind when I was seeing all that was this is an inverse of Rey and Luke in The Last Jedi. In that story, Rey's desperately seeking Luke in an island in the middle of nowhere to try to get her to come back and teach her how to use the power she's got. And he's trying to reject all this because he knows the threat that such power, untrained and beholding, like fall into the dark side could do. This is the opposite. This is Kinnear trying to like I said, you use the right word
Yeah.
there. It's seduction. He's trying to seduce Osha to fall in with him. This is not a seduction of a romantic nature or even of a sexual nature. This is a seduction of power. This
Yeah.
is, you will be under my thrall. This is much the same way as Palpatine and Anakin. I'm going to teach you how to use all you got, and then you're going to
And
use it for
that's
my benefit.
and that's the word right there. I think that's a common thread that we have not thread, huh? Um,
Mhm.
the line from Mother Anastasia where she says,
Mhm.
"This is not about good or bad. This is about power and who is allowed to use it." And
Right.
that's exactly what Chimera is saying. And by the way, I wish Star Wars would give a pronunciation guide um, before every episode, because it's like before every new series, because we're all pronouncing it a gazillion different ways. But anyway, that's what he
Mhm.
says. It's he said it to Saul. I just want to be able to use my powers in the way that I see fit. And what Osha says, something like, "That's path to the dark side," and he says, "Semantics."
Mhm.
It's like that does make you go, well, yeah. I mean, yeah, good, bad is subjective.
Of the guy with the gun.
But, however, Dave, you brought up a good point. There are some clear things. Thou shalt not kill. You know, but what is it? What
Nothing
does it
about this.
mean? What does it mean to covet, though? You know what I mean? It's like so there. It's and then he also brings up the point. He's like, why is it okay to kill me in battle, but as I'm standing in front of you here naked, why is that wrong to kill me now? I mean, there's some really big philosophical, conundrums that are being brought up in this episode of, because it's like, well, yeah, I mean, but
But it's also much the same way as the Emperor challenging Luke and the Death Star of, you take your weapon, you strike me down, I'm unarmed. Here, you do all that, and all you're gonna do is fall to the dark side. Because you're not doing it to protect, you're not doing it to be the good person, you're not doing it to be the hero. You're striking down completely unarmed, defenseless, quote unquote. And I'm using air quotes a lot today, so forgive me.
but like
But it's very much in a, you're giving in to the temptation to just solve your problem with violence, not help people, not heal people, not bring justice. OSHA had it right the first time. It's like, okay, I'm gonna arrest May because she's killed some people, and we're gonna bring her to
now,
justice. And
however,
mhm,
I'm sorry. Let's think about this though. Let's go back to the fight in the forest. Who started the fight?
the Jedi,
So
they're allowed.
could it be said, and he was outnumbered, what, 8-1? So could we be saying that, by the way, guys, I'm not saying he's the good guy here, but, is he acting in self-defense? You know, I
Well,
mean,
he put himself in that position. Let's put it that way. One of the elements of self-defense is that if, as long as you have an out and you choose to take it, that's the better course of action.
I
So
mean,
you can't just simply say, "I'm standing here and they're coming charging at me, and I'm choosing not to get on this ship and run away."
that's why it's a
You know,
good thing that
you-
we do not record this in a bar like I originally thought, because
mhm,
we'd have a couple beers in us and we would be going around and around the table here because I mean,
mhm.
there are
Yeah,
so
we
many
just
things to
end
think
up in
about.
circles. Yeah.
But
The other thing is he did murder Kilnaka, as far as we know. So like, he's not like a complete innocent
no,
in
no, no,
any of
I'm
that.
not saying that in the
Yeah.
least bit. But
Yeah.
I am saying that, it's like I just think this last episode was so well done to if the whole thing is to, mind McClunky OSHA
Hmm.
Mhm.
and all of that is like, I'm surprised he didn't say, "Hey, your buddies were the ones that came after me with a lightsaber. I was defending myself." You know,
And what I find,
go
and
ahead.
what I find interesting, right quick, is that I mean, Saul spends most of that last episode on, thinking that May is OSHA. And Mir knows for the fact that that's OSHA that he's taken with him. He knows who that is. And rather than say he disappointed that May ran away from him or that May turned his back on him, he's just like, hey, I don't have May, I have OSHA, I'll make do. And it's interesting that his first thought of action is, I can probably turn OSHA easier than I can turn May, which, despite the fact that OSHA's the one who's been trained by the Jedi.
So I want to pause for a second, and first of all, say that the acting in this, especially this last episode, first of all, the dude playing Chimere
Mir.
is
Yeah.
awesome. I mean, just awesome. Again, the guy playing Soul, great. Um, so I will agree with some people. It's like I'm trying to figure out May and what her deal is, because it was like, I'm going to kill all the Jedi. Now I'm going to turn myself into the Jedi and tell them what I know. And now I'm on the ship with Soul pretending I'm OSHA and I've got a knife and I'm going to kill Soul. It's like, if there is one criticism of this so far, it's like, get to the dang point, because we've heard 3 times now of Soul saying, I'm going to tell you what happened, you know, next
And,
week.
and
I'm going to
Yeah.
tell you what happened next week. And then, but like I
Yeah.
said, there's
Well,
this kind of flip flop of what's going on with May that I wish it's like, it's just kind of unsettling.
what's May's plot, like thought process?
What's her
It,
motive? What's, yeah.
yeah, and some of the choices that Amanda has made, not a huge fan. I think like some of the story elements behind, again, like as you said, with like particularly with May, but to a lesser degree, somewhat with Osha, you're like, why are you doing that? Would you do that? Would I do that? Would anybody do that? And they're so there's some of that right going on, and that stuff's kind of hard to deal with. So um like if I'm gun to my head right now, if you say rank your favorite Star Wars shows, this wouldn't probably be one of them yet right now. But again, I want to watch the whole thing, see where we end up, um and decide for myself that way. um but yeah, I think like there's certain things going on where it's just like, why why would you do what you are doing? It doesn't make sense. It's like I think like, why is she right now, why is she with Saul? I think her intention was to kill him because like she was still stuck on that, but she was very clearly conflicted about following through on all of that 2 episodes ago. um she was like, oh, I'm done, I'm out of here. And then, well, now maybe not. um and it's okay for us to not understand those motivations, but when they come across as being inconsistent, that's when you begin to sort of like lose the viewer.
And this goes to the criticism that I had earlier about the length of the episodes. It's don't tell me that we don't have enough time to actually delve a bit further. You don't have to tell us all the background. You can hold your cards close till it's time to reveal them. But we are now, as of in about 3 minutes, 7 episodes in with these characters, and we, we felt sad about Jackie and Yor going, even though we didn't have much to know about it, but we got to know them a little bit. We like Saul because he's an interesting character. We got to know him a little bit. We spent the most time arguably with Osha and May, but what do we know about
I
them?
haven't gotten very far
What?
down the road.
Yeah, and I don't necessarily mean their background. I don't necessarily mean where they're from, what happened. We're gonna get all that. I mean them as characters. What's motivating them? Why is Osha? I mean, okay,
So
Osha got arrested as a murder suspect because her twin sister killed a Jedi Master.
I think
Okay,
it's
your name's being cleared. Why are you still
it's
going through
easier for
this?
me. It's easier for me to figure out what OSHA's motivation is from even from episode 3. She's looking
Mhm.
for belonging. She's looking
Mhm.
for an identity. And, she thought she found it in the Jedi. And now she's looking to, maybe she'll find it with, Chimere. Um, but May is just kind of one of those. The only thing we've heard is, I don't know, it was that I'm, trying to get my sister back. I don't know. And even that was weird because for the rest of the other episodes, she's trying to kill everybody. But I will say what's kind of interesting in this last episode, both Soul and Chimere are doing nearly the same thing. Soul, you talk about, Chimere, keeping Osha on the island against her will. Soul literally puts, you know, May in binders and says, "You're not leaving anywhere and we're going to talk." So it's like, I think what and what's the main mystery? Everybody thought the main mystery was who the Sith Lord is. That wasn't the mystery. And we all had kind of had that pegged for a while, you know. But I think the main story here is just, again, that the line that I hate, from my perspective, the Jedi are evil. I mean, they're behaving in very similar fashions. Yes, motivations might be different, but the behaviors are very, very similar.
They behave very much like the ones who've been in power and believe they have an eternal right to walk around strutting with that power. And that's why Saul coming face to face with Quamir and being confronted with somebody who uses their power, but in a way that they don't use it, that's more direct and more threatening, shocks him because this is not supposed to be happening. Um, But that's part of what's interesting in the show. That kind of education, that kind of exploration. But you're right. The difficulty here is 6 episodes in, we've seen May be an assassin. We've seen May be a confused teenager. We've seen May turn her back on her alleged friend and the master that she didn't know that was him. And now we've seen her betray the sister that she allegedly was being didn't know was dead, but now is trying to reconnect. So it's like, okay, what exactly is moving you? What exactly is making you do the things you do? Why did you switch your clothing with Osha so you can go on the ship with Saul if now you're not sure about killing Saul, or what's your mission now? What is he trying to do? So uh, that to me is like the frustrating aspect because we're 6 episodes in and she's still as much of a mystery as she was week one.
I would say that we're about to hit the time limit here.
Yeah.
I,
Final
we
thoughts.
we may not record another episode before this thing wraps up. So I would ask you guys, where do you think we end up? If you do, you have any predictions? Do you have any? Call your shots.
I've told you mine. I think that Chimere is going to be. I think Chimere might get away. I think Soul's going to end up getting killed. I think he's going to get that Harvey Dent moment because Vernestra, we haven't talked about this. She was having a conversation with a senator saying that basically the Jedi needs oversight. And in episode 1 talked about if about their political enemies, if they found out that one of their own was murdering Jedi, it's going to cause problems. So she's going to do a cover up. She's going to do a cover up, and then Ki-Adi-Mundi is off the hook for not knowing that the Sith was around. And with Chimere getting away, that opens us up for a second season. And one of the girls is we're going to lose one of the girls as well. I've often thought that I don't know which one because we just can't keep with the twins thing here, especially if they are a dyad. Anyway, that's so. My guess is that Osha sticks around. Saul's done, gets the Harvey Dent treatment. Chimere gets away by the skin of his teeth.
I think honestly, if we're going to lose one of the two twins, losing May is the easier one, just because I think all the complexity, all the interesting elements of the story, all the ways in which this can go really rely on Osha. She's the one who didn't want to be with her coven. She's the one who went with Saul. She's the one who's got all his knows of the Jedi, knows of all these characters. So and she's also the one who walked away from all that. So there's still lots to uncover there. Whereas I think May, they've just not done enough to kind of get us enticed about her character beyond her having an awesome fight in the first 5 minutes with Master Indara. So if you're gonna have to lose one of them, May going away because May living doesn't give us more answers about Chimere, about the Sith, about the dark side. Ocean needs to be introduced to all that in order for her to fall to the dark side. And we saw her put that helmet on. She's unsure about what to do next, so she's kind of fumbling in the dark trying to figure it out. And that's how we get answers.
Yeah, at the risk of being really boring, I think I agree with both of you. And one of the reasons for my thinking on this too is just the title of the show, The Acolyte, singular. I don't think he's going to end up with both of them. I think he will get out of this, and I think he will end up with one of them alongside him. But for the reasons that you outlined, it would be more interesting if it was Osha. She's the one that she would be the audience surrogate. She would be the one that would be seeing all of these sorts of things for the first time. We would see them along with her, and That's not really a story that we've seen very much of. The seduction into the dark side. We've seen it with Anakin a little bit. Everything with Ben happened off screen. We never saw it. And beyond that, I'm racking my brain, but I'm not really thinking there's much. There's another story again, like other than EU or maybe some of the novels, but like this hasn't been done. So I would think that from that perspective, they would be setting themselves up for a season 2.
Just right quick, just to jump back in, OSHA living and your theory coming through of Saul taking the fall would lead us to set us up for an interesting season 2 of how does she deal with the fact that the Jedi hung her former master out to dry? Would that just simply push her further into the dark side? Make her come after Vernestra? What does that do to her? So it gets interesting because again, there's all these questions. We hopefully will get some of those answers tonight, but knowing kind of where the show's kind of built. The interesting one is it's not me, not at this point at least. We could all be wrong.
Cool. Well, all right. Well, we'll leave it at that. Let us know what you think. Remember, tell us who the bartender was in A New Hope. And can't go on Wikipedia to look it up. If you know it, you have to let us know on Twitter. Yeah, let us know what you think is going on with the Acolyte, and we'll see you when we see you. Until then, we'll say who dat.
Who dat?
Everybody have an awesome week.
McConkey.